Ray Charles died today in California of liver failure. He was 73. Ray Charles was a master of American music.
Friends shared stories about Ray Charles, about how his musical genius inspired a young Stevie Wonder.
I knew there was a man that had a voice.
You've probably heard the voice of Ray Charles, the voice that once shook America. He's considered the father of soul music, a man who used trembling hands and flawless memory to reshape 20th century music, forcing the world to recognize a blind man as a true genius. But have you truly known the tragedies he had to endure? Ray Charles lost his younger brother to drowning at just 5 years old, went completely blind at 7, struggled with addiction for 17 years, was arrested multiple times, and had 12 children with 10 different women. But that's still not all. Few know that Ray Charles spent his final years alone in an isolated mansion in Beverly Hills. And then, 20 years after his death, a will was found, containing a secret never made public. So what exactly was in that strange will, and why did a legend die in silence? No wife or children by his side, no grand funeral, no one truly there to say goodbye. In today's video, join us as we step into Ray Charles's mansion to uncover the final answer. To understand why a will had to be hidden for so long, we have to return to the mansion where Ray Charles spent the final years of his life, a white house perched atop North Beverly Drive, set apart from the rest of Beverly Hills not by distance, but by a presence too distinct to blend in. He bought it in 1987 right after signing a series of multi-million-dollar record deals, a period many called the glorious comeback of the genius. Mid-century modern architecture minimalist, cold, and without a single wasted corner. The mansion spanned nearly 8,000 square feet, with 7 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and a private recording studio fully soundproofed, a place no one was allowed to enter after 1 a.m., no assistants, no sound engineers, no family. Just him and his piano, every night until dawn. Neighbors still recall how eerily silent the house always was. During the day, the curtains were always drawn. At night, only one faint light would flicker on the second floor believed to be the studio. No one knew what he did in there. But what happened after Ray's death was what truly sent chills down people's spines. Ever since Ray Charles passed, for some strange reason, every June 10th at exactly 2:03 a.m., people nearby claimed to hear the faint sound of a piano echoing from inside the house. Because of that, no one has dared to buy it. It was listed a few times once at $10.5 million, then dropped to $8 million, then vanished from the market. Every time someone tried to renovate it, they left just days later, never giving a reason. A lavish mansion with a full view of Los Angeles from the living room balcony, yet for 20 years, no one has moved in. It all comes back to one thing, the studio. No one moves in, but no one dares to tear it down either. The door is as heavy as a bank vault, so soundproofed that stepping inside feels like your ears just stopped working. On the wall still hangs a small metal plaque, faintly etched with the words, "Only play when you're alone." And it was inside that very room, the one no one had ever been allowed to enter while he was alive, that the handwritten will was found. No one knows how long it had been hidden there. No one understands why it existed. But now, it raises a question even bigger than Ray Charles's musical legacy. What did he really leave behind? Could that will unveil secrets and earth-shattering truths about the life of a legend? To unravel the mystery, Ray Charles never wanted anyone to know. You have to go back to a chapter of his life he never mentioned in any interview. It all began on September 23, 1930, in a dusty little town called Albany, Georgia. A place where poverty and racial prejudice existed side by side with the hum of flies around the pig trough and the sighs of mothers too young. His real name was Ray Charles Robinson. No father, no official record. Not a single line in his birth certificate hinted he'd become a musical genius. Only one woman saw it, his mother, Aretha. She once said the only words he'd never forget, "As long as you can hear the music in your heart, no one can take you from me." But by the time Ray was 5, that was no longer true. One June afternoon in 1935, Ray was playing with his younger brother George by a washtub of rainwater behind the house. In a single moment of looking away, George slipped, face down into the water. Ray heard the splashing, turned back, saw his brother sinking, and froze. More heartbreaking still. It was the first death he ever witnessed, and the last image he saw with his eyes. A few months later, glaucoma struck fast and cruel. By 1937, he was completely blind. Ray's world now had no light, no color, only the memory of a death underwater. What followed were long years of Ray living like a shadow trailing his mother. She worked odd jobs, washed dishes, begged for scraps to keep him out of an orphanage. But in 1945, when she fell ill and died, Ray was 15, no mother, no home to return to. He drifted across Florida with an old keyboard and a few coins in his pocket. It wasn't the start of a legend. It was the start of a kid who'd lost everything, except a memory no one could touch. Yet there's another detail, rarely mentioned because it's too easily misunderstood. In his memoir, Ray admitted he was abused at 12 by a woman nearly twice his age. It was one night in 1942 in Tallahassee, when Ray was sent to stay with an acquaintance while his mother worked far away. In a rented room out back, a widow nearing 30, once a lounge singer, approached the blind boy under the pretense of evening music lessons, and the most horrific thing happened to a blind boy. Perhaps from that night on, Ray became obsessed with women, an obsession that would lead to an unimaginable tragedy late in life. And that terrible memory somehow remains locked away in a Beverly Hills mansion. On the second floor of the mansion, there's a small bedroom, barely noticed by anyone. Inside hangs a single old black and white photo of a black woman, about 30 years old, hair neatly pinned up, wearing a classic silk dress. Many assumed it was his mother Aretha, but it wasn't. It was the woman who lived with Ray Charles when he was just 12. The first to stain his soul. That photo never appeared in newspapers or books about his life. No one knows when he kept it, nor why he placed it on the second floor, a place hardly anyone visited. A cleaning worker once said that, passing by the hallway, they heard a faint whisper, "Mama, save me." Ray Charles may have lost his sight at 7, but the real darkness enveloped him through memories never revealed. After his mother's death and years of blind wandering, Ray Charles stepped into professional music in 1947, performing in bars and small theaters across the American South. He moved from state to state like a man without a home, sleeping on buses, eating canned noodles, and playing music with a pain yet to be named. Every song he wrote wasn't just for survival, but to drown out the echoes in his mind, the sound of water, of crying, of calling Mama in the dead of night. Perhaps that's why, even as fame began, Ray never allowed himself to stop. In 1952, he signed with Atlantic Records. By 1954, I Got a Woman was born a groundbreaking song, but also a controversial bomb. He infused gospel hymns with sexual lyrics, sparking outrage from many black churches. To them, he was a sellout trading God for fame. But to Ray, it was just a way to express what he felt: confusion, love, insecurity, and no place to pray but his own piano. Amid newfound glory, he began a secret relationship with Margie Hendricks, the lead singer of the Rylettes. They were passionately, secretly in love, addicted, and had a son together. But Ray never publicly acknowledged the child, not because he didn't love him, but because he was afraid of repeating what his father had done, disappearing, afraid he couldn't protect the child from the things that killed his own childhood. Margie fell into addiction alongside him. Every tour was a sleepless night, needles hidden in jackets, arguments followed by music as if nothing had happened. Even on grand stages, Ray always felt watched, not by authorities, but by old voices in his head, his brother, his mother, and that woman from years ago. Until October 14, 1965, when Ray Charles landed at Logan Airport, Boston. He arrived as a top start, selling out Symphony Hall. But less than 15 minutes after stepping off the plane, that glow vanished. 2 federal agents approached as he waited for his luggage. No warning, no chance to leave the public area. They demanded he open his suitcase on the spot. One began rifling through clothes, the other cut open a notebook of sheet music. When they found a black cloth bag at the bottom containing over 20 foil packets, used syringes, and 2 glass vials, they exchanged a glance, said nothing, and pulled out handcuffs amid a growing crowd. Ray didn't resist. He couldn't explain. He just stood there, head tilted, flashing a crooked smile. At that moment, a passenger shouted, "My God, that's Ray Charles." As the cuffs locked around his wrists, the airport terminal erupted in chaos. Initial reports suggested he faced heavy penalties, but the case quietly closed after a high-level letter recommended treatment over conviction. Ray escaped prison, but from then on, he signed for long-term rehab. After that fall, Ray stopped staying in hotels on tour. He refused to rent rooms, disliked keycard locks, and hated knocks at night. Years later, he said he needed a place where no one could catch me anymore, even in my dreams. And that's why, in 1987, Ray Charles bought the Beverly Hills mansion and built a private recording studio fully soundproofed, cut off from the world. No managers, no lovers, no one allowed in after 1 a.m. Because it was no longer a place for making music, it was a place to hold the things no one was allowed to know. Have you ever wondered how many times can a person fall and still find the strength to pull themselves back up? After 17 years battling addiction, quietly injecting backstage, handcuffed before crowds, nearly losing everything, Ray Charles emerged from the darkness in 1966. No fanfare, no tears, just a simple statement: "I stopped." But what sends chills isn't that he quit drugs, it's that he came back with a creative force that silenced critics. From 1966 to 1970, Ray wrote like a man crawling out of hell, played like he'd never faltered, and sang as if every line was an atonement. It was the cleanest era of his music. No drugs, no scandals, just a man, a piano, and astonishing survival. In 1973, Margie Hendricks, his longtime lover, fiery singer, mother of his son, died in a rundown apartment, suspected of overdosing. The press ran a brief note. Ray didn't attend the funeral. No wreath, no farewell song. Only rumors that he cried alone all night in his studio, not the label's studio, but the secret one he built behind the mansion's backyard, where no one but him held the key. 2 years later, in 1975, Ray faced another fall. The IRS investigated him for evading over $500,000 in taxes. Everything nearly collapsed, but he escaped not through lawyers, but through music and fame. The public forgave, the government backed off. But for Ray, the cost wasn't about money. Everyone knows Ray Charles was a musical genius, but few dare say it plainly. He was also a man who shirked responsibility until his final breath. Amid hits and Grammys, Ray had 12 children with 10 different women, and even at the end, some children he never named. It all began in 1951 when Ray Charles, just 21, was starting his career. Between early recording sessions, he met Eileen Williams, a quiet, intelligent logistics worker at a Los Angeles studio. They married quickly, no press, no lavish wedding, no announced ring, just a marriage certificate and a few well wishes from music friends. But the marriage lasted less than a year. They had no children. No photos of them survived in family albums or the press. Then, during a tour in Cleveland, paparazzi caught Ray leaving a hotel with another woman, hand in hand, laughing in the cold night. Weeks later, Eileen vanished from his life, no divorce announced, no final interview. The story of Ray Charles' first wife closed quietly, like a song cut off mid-note. Only later, when people traced his past, was Eileen Williams a faint footnote in his biography's opening page. In 1954, while performing in Texas, Ray Charles met Della Beatrice Howard, a nurse with calm eyes and a steady voice. Unlike the women who flocked to him, Della didn't ask for autographs or seem dazzled, perhaps that's what caught his eye. A year later, they married. Della was the first woman to move in with Ray, enduring his endless tours, late nights, and strange phone calls she never questioned. They had 3 sons, Ray Jr. in 1955, David in 1958, and Robert in 1960. Della raised the boys, keeping the home warm while Ray was away. She was the only one who believed she could turn a wandering genius into a real father. But Ray never truly stopped. He kept playing, kept using, kept cheating as if family was just a temporary stage he played when tired and left when the music called again. In 1977, after 22 years together, Della didn't make a scene. She left a handwritten note on the piano. "I loved you my whole life, but I can't teach you to love of anyone else." Then she quietly left. No lawsuits, no demands for alimony, leaving Ray truly alone in his own home for the first time. But before his marriage to Della ended, Ray had already secretly started an affair with Margie Hendricks, the lead singer of the Raylettes. They met in 1958 during a recording session, and from that moment, Margie didn't just harmonize with Ray on stage, but became the woman who kept him away from home more than he returned. In 1959, Margie gave birth to a boy, Charles Wayne, but Ray refused to sign the birth certificate. The boy grew up with his mother's last name, living quietly like an erased footnote in Ray's story. Their relationship spiraled as both sank deeper into addiction. Performances turned into arguments. Recording sessions ended in heavy silence. The breaking point came during a Nashville show in 1964 when Margie, in a rage, threw a microphone at Ray's face on stage before hundreds of fans. The next day, he fired her on the spot. 9 years later, in July 1973, Margie Hendricks was found dead in a shabby apartment in Macon, Georgia, her body slumped by the bed, 2 drug vials rolling on the floor, the door unlocked. No one was with her. No one claimed her. No news outlet covered it. Ray Charles didn't attend the funeral. No flowers. No call to their son. But a housekeeper said that night, he locked the studio door and played the piano for 12 hours straight, silent, no food, no sleep. The piano rang with heavy notes, like knocks on a coffin. By morning, he was still there. The only difference, his blind eyes were wet. And for the first time in years, it wasn't because the light was gone, but because a part of his darkness was gone forever. After Margie came a string of fleeting romances. Mae Mosley gave birth to daughter Renee in 1961. Sandra Jean Betts had Sheila Ray in 1963, who later wrote in her memoir, "I only knew my father's voice from the radio, never heard him say my name." In France, he had a relationship with photographer Arlette Kochunian, who shot his iconic 1967 black and white photos. She gave birth to son Vincent in 1977, but Ray never visited Paris to see him. He even loved a 19-year-old French student, Marie Chantal Bertrand, after a Montreal show. A year later, daughter Alexandra was born. Her mother wrote over 10 letters begging him to acknowledge the child. None were answered. In 1978, Ray had daughter Robin with Gloria Moffett, from a relationship that lasted 2 weeks. And in 1987, at 57, he had his youngest, Ryan, with Marianne Den Bach, a young Dutch singer. Then, in 1979, President Jimmy Carter awarded Ray the Medal of Freedom, the highest honor for an American citizen. People saw him smile, shake hands, give thanks, but no one saw what was in the leather briefcase he carried that day. Only a manager later said it was a locked wooden box, the only thing he kept close in his final decade. Inside wasn't sheet music, but a locked wooden box, something he kept with him through his last 10 years. After his death, the box sat untouched in the second-floor studio, unopened. Some say it held unsent letters to his children, apologies. Ray never dared speak, and if anyone could open that box, perhaps they'd see a more responsible Father Ray. In his final years, Ray Charles lived almost reclusively in the nearly 8,000-square-foot Beverly Hills mansion, once a hub for hundreds of artists, lovers, and all-night recording sessions. But after 2002, as liver disease worsened, everything grew quiet. His body weakened from diabetes complications and decades of alcohol and drug abuse. He stopped touring, stopped talking to the press, and cut off all strangers from the house. Even his 12 children only met him individually, and none were allowed on the second floor. By the end, despite fame from millions of records and dozens of prestigious awards, Ray Charles lived in an eerily silent space. His longtime wife, Della Beatrice, who stood by him for 22 years, left in 1977 after too many forgiven affairs and nights he didn't come home. The divorce was quiet, no lawsuits. But a clean cut from then on. Ray lived alone. Old lovers were gone too. Margie Hendricks died from an overdose, and other women faded away, disappearing as abruptly as they entered, sudden, brief, no goodbyes. By the early 2000s, the vast Beverly Hills mansion held only a few rotating medical staff, a loyal elderly cook making soup and oatmeal each morning, and a private nurse who'd followed him for years. But Ray's true final companion wasn't any of them. It was the piano in the second-floor studio where he went every night. Despite liver disease, diabetes complications, and eyes blind since age 7, Ray didn't want visitors, didn't turn on the TV, didn't leave the house. Each morning, the housekeeper found new sheet music on the table he recorded steadily until his final month, silently, hauntingly, as if trying to capture his last voice before falling into eternal silence. From April 2004, Ray Charles's health declined sharply. Liver disease progressed rapidly from diabetes complications and decades of stress, addiction, and isolation. He grew gaunt, his face sallow, his breath short after each slow step to the second-floor studio where the last piano he could play waited. Doctors urged immediate hospitalization for IV fluids, dialysis, and intensive care. They warned without admission within a week he might not survive. But Ray just went quiet, then shook his head. In his final checkup, when his private nurse begged him to take the ambulance, he said only, "I don't want to die in a hospital. I want to die where a piano's waiting." On the evening of June 9th, the nurse was the last to see him alert. She left an orange juice and a small envelope on the dining table as usual, then walked away. He nodded lightly, blind eyes gazing down the long hallway as if he could still see everything, then softly tapped a rhythm on the chair's arm, slow, steady, like a ballad only he heard. At dawn on June 10, 2004, a caregiver found Ray Charles unconscious in the studio, head tilted, hand still on the familiar wooden box. Medical reports confirmed he died at home around 2 a.m. from liver failure. His youngest son, Ryan, arrived within an hour, but Ray never opened his eyes again. After Ray Charles's death, his official will was announced to the media, most of his over $75 million estate, including real estate, music royalties. And image rights went to the Ray Charles Foundation, a charity he founded to support the blind and deaf. Each child received $500,000 from a trust fund. It seemed fair, but many felt excluded from their father's true legacy. Within 6 months of the funeral, 6 of the 12 children filed complaints, arguing the will didn't reflect Ray's true wishes. They demanded a review of all remaining intellectual property, especially unreleased recordings and rights to his name in commercial projects. The dispute quickly became the largest family lawsuit in American music at the time. Then, in early 2005, everything took an unexpected turn. An independent lawyer tasked with inventorying the second-floor studio in the Beverly Hills mansion found an envelope hidden under the piano's bench, sealed, with a red wax stamp. Inside was a handwritten will, just 3 pages, dated June 10, 2004, 2:03 a.m. The document bore a signature matching Ray Charles's legal signature perfectly, and a fresh fingerprint legally verified. The words were brief but shattering. "I leave all music copyrights, personal image, and unreleased recordings to Ray Charles Jr., the son I never dared openly love. Ray Jr. His eldest son, with first wife Della, had quietly supported his father during his illness, but was never publicly cherished by Ray. Now, Ray's entire artistic heart unheard song, unpublished archives, was secretly left to the son he rarely named. But what stunned everyone was the timing. 2:03 a.m. 3 minutes after Ray Charles was declared dead. No one knows if he signed it in his final moments, hand trembling, heart fading, or if someone else knew the secret, holding it until he could no longer speak. Perhaps the second-floor studio still holds the answer, or maybe it was a legend's final atonement. Ray Charles is gone, but his music lives on. From Georgia on My Mind to Hit the Road, Jack. Each melody carrying the breath of the American soul, of a man who was both legend and unhealed pain. He left a towering legacy, 17 Grammys, millions of records, and an unshakable place in the hearts of music lovers worldwide. But behind the stage lights are secrets that beg the question, did the public ever truly know the man? So, after all we've revealed from a will signed after death, children left in silence, a mansion with a locked room, does the image of Ray Charles in your mind remain the same? Leave a comment below and let us know what intrigues you most about this man who lived between genius and sin. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep uncovering untold truths about the black icons who burned brightly in a bygone era's memory.